You know, I just didn't feel quite right doing this video while I wasn't wearing this shirt. Yeah, I picked this thing up during my read of Lord of the Rings, and it's quickly become my favorite shirt ever. So dwarves as they appear in D&D have three subraces. We have the Grey Dwarf, we have the Hill Dwarf, and we have the Mountain Dwarf. Now, if you're trying to play a character that is just an absolute sack of hit points, like, you want to play a straight-up tank, like, Dwarf is one of the best options for you out, like, in the game, period. Especially if you're going to build, like, Hill Dwarf with the tough feat, like, oh, man, these guys are just unreal. As a dwarf, your constitution score increases by 2, which is, in my opinion, one of the most versatile, if not the most versatile, ability score improvement in the game. Size, dwarves stand between 4 and 5 feet tall and weigh an average of about 150 pounds. Your size is medium. Speed, so they're one of the only races that's a medium size that gets a walking speed of 25 feet. I kind of think that's to reconcile that, you know, they're shorter of stature and legs aren't super long. Yeah, your speed is not reduced by wearing heavy armor. So what this means is if you look in the armor section, if that armor has a strength requirement and your strength score is not equal to that number, then your movement speed gets reduced by the armor. Dwarves don't have to deal with that. I don't know that it's necessarily something that the tech balance guys value very highly. A lot of the dwarf builds are already going to get, like, proficiency with the heavy armor, and their strength score is not really going to suffer by... Yeah. People just aren't conventionally playing dwarfs that get heavy armor that don't already have a strength score that's up there. You get the standard dark vision, 60 feet. Dwarven resilience, so this is fantastic right here. This is where dwarf becomes one of the best tanks ever. You have advantage on saving throws against poison, so this is against the poison condition. You have resistance against poison damage, one of the most common damage types in the game, one of the most common conditions that you're going to have to make saves against. This is absolutely just super strong. If we're thinking about it in terms of resistance to damage types like this, if you're looking at the rules for how Wizards generally values resistances, they're actually hit point modifiers. So whenever you're making a stat block, if you're trying to measure something's defensive CR, you multiply their hit points. It's super strong if you're thinking about it that way. Dwarven combat training, you have proficiency with the battle axe, hand axe, light hammer, and warhammer. Most builds that you're going to go are already going to give these to you. I think they mostly did this so that, like, you know, dwarf cleric is always going to have access to these. I'm not really sure. I'm even trying to think maybe monk might be able to use something as a monk weapon. I'm not. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure. Well, and the light hammer. Tool proficiency, you gain proficiency with the artisan's tools of your choice from either smith's tools, brewer supplies, or mason's tools. Cool. Stone cutting, I initially thought whenever I first looked at my player's handbook that this was just a ribbon feature that, like, more of kind of like a flare, you know, that this is a feature that doesn't really have major implications for the game. However, a really creative player can get a ton of information out of this feature. Whenever you make an intelligence history check related to the origin of stonework, you are considered proficient in the history skill and add double your proficiency bonus to the check instead of your normal proficiency bonus. You can figure out all kinds of information just by checking out, like, hieroglyphs, just by checking out, like, how old is this temple you know, like, does it look like this is a new building per se? Let's say the classic, you know, gelatinous cube situation, right? Where you walk in and you go into a hallway and everything is, like, spotless. Make this history check and the DM tells you something like, no, this stone looks like naturally aged, but it looks like it's been, like, almost, like, bleach cleaned, you know? That's gonna tell you a bit about some stuff that's coming up. I think smart, you know, some pretty clever and creative dwarf players are going to find that that gives you a lot of mileage. Languages, you can speak, read, and write Common and Dwarvish, so standard language +1. Okay, so the Grey Dwarf, or the Duergar. Your strength score increases by 1. Superior Dark Vision, your Dark Vision has a radius of 120 feet now. Extra language, you can speak, read, and write under Common. Duergar Resilience, you have advantage on saving throws against illusions, and against being paralyzed on top of being charmed. Like, Duergar Resilience is really freaking strong. I would honestly, personally, I'm always taking this over Fey Ancestry if I get a choice. Duragar magic, when you reach 3rd level, you can cast the Enlarge Reduce spell on yourself once with this trait, using only the spell's Enlarge option. What does being enlarged do? The target size doubles in all dimensions and its weight is multiplied by 8. This growth increases in size by 1 category from medium to large, for example. If there isn't enough room for the target to double its size, the creature or object retains its maximum possible size in the space available. Until the spell ends, the target also has advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws. The target's weapons also grow to match its new size. While these weapons are enlarged, the target's attacks with them deal 1d4 extra damage. Wow. That I'm going to talk about that. I think that's one of their strongest things. When you reach 5th level, you can cast the invisibility spell on yourself once with this trait. You don't need material components for either spell, and you can't cast them while you're in direct sunlight. This is more detrimental towards melee builds than it is for ranged builds. Duragar, however, you are really built to be a melee fighter. Like, this is really calling you to be a frontline heavy character. And you have a lot more effectiveness on where you are necessarily on the battlefield than where your enemy is. So if you're hanging out back in, under the shade of a tree, totally, whatever. However, if you are having to get in on an owlbear while it's daylight, that's, yeah. However, although sunlight has no effect on them once cast, so you can go in, pop into the shade, cast invisibility, it's going to take a little bit more of the action economy to really get a ton of use out of that. However, getting invisibility as a racial trait is super strong. Super strong. You regain the ability to cast these spells with this trait when you finish a long rest. Intelligence is your spellcasting ability for these spells. I think, honestly, right here, I feel like Wizards has been kind of reluctant to give a whole lot of races Constitution as a spellcasting ability for these spells. It doesn't really super matter here in the case of like Enlarge, Reduce, and Invisibility, but yeah, I don't know. I think Dwarf was a natural fit for like Constitution being a spellcasting ability modifier, but Sunlight Sensitivity, you have disadvantage on attack rolls and Wisdom Perception checks that rely on sight when you, the target of your attack, or whatever you're trying to perceive is in direct sunlight. Sunlight Sensitivity isn't super detrimental here, and not as much as it is on the Kobold, because the Kobold already just didn't have a lot going for it. This is kind of negligible, I would say, in certain campaigns. Almost just completely ineffective in something like maybe, what is it, Out of the Abyss? I'm trying to remember. Like, if you're doing major dungeon crawls, this is going to be, like, you're not even thinking, oh, yeah, why even put this on your character sheet? Hill Dwarf. So, the ability score increase, your wisdom score increases by 1. Dwarven toughness, your hit point maximum increases by 1, and increases by 1 every time you gain a level. Wow, so the first time I read this, I was like, wow, that's nothing. 1 hit point? That's 20 hit points at the end of it. And another way you can think about this is that's your Constitution score is essentially going up by 2. And so Hill Dwarf basically has, minus the saving throw stuff, but a Constitution score increase of 4 and a Wisdom score increase of 1. Like, whenever you think about it like that, this looks scary good. Bundle that with the tough feat, that's insane. I'm going to skip over the Everon dwarves for right now. Mountain Dwarf, your strength score increases by 2. So your Constitution score increases by 2. Now your strength score increases by 2. They are the only class currently in the game that gets 2 ability scores that increase by 2. Dwarven armor training, you have proficiency with light and medium armor. Okay. Cool. Most builds are already going to give you that, so this is kind of whatever. This, on the other hand, I'm sure, like, if you've never looked at Dwarf, and you're seeing this, you're seeing strength score increases by 2 and Constitution score increases by 2, you're probably already thinking, barbarian, 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 right? Like, so, let's go over into my race and class synergy analysis table, version 2.0, and check out what I think about the Dwarf. Alright, so here we are in my race and class synergy analysis table, version 2.0. What have I done here? I included the detect balance rating, so now not only can you see what I think of them, but you can see what the detect balance guys actually think of it as well. Movement speeds, I have all of them listed here. Like you can see the 25 is in red because it's one on the lower end of movement speeds for races. Black is just kind of like average, and then green shows that they have something that's adding to that score, or it's one of the higher scores out there. It also includes their ability score improvements that they get. It includes any of the features that I think were, any of the features I felt, that I could put on this table and make it make sense for everything, and that I felt were actually impactful on my rating towards the classes and all that. Any innate magic, how many spells do they get? Advantage on any saves, so that's like Fey Ancestry would do that. Condition resistance and immunity. Similar thing here, I consider like condition resistance being like you have advantage on the save. Damage immunities, damage resistances, same thing. How many do they get? Any skill proficiencies that they get, whether it's a given skill, a choice of given skills, choice of any skill, advantage or bonus to checks, and a tool proficiency. Given language, choice of language, speak with beasts, or telepathy. Okay, so we finally officially got the Artificer. Dwarf Artificer in general is going to be a B. They get the +2 to their Constitution. Most Artificer builds are calling for a higher intelligence, and the Constitution helps them out, sure. Barbarian, S+, just across the board. Specifically about the Dwargar, though. You might be thinking, like, Enlarge, Reduce, Killer, get in there with Barbarian, do everything. Enlarge, Reduce doesn't work while you're raging, at least not the one on yourself. So, what I still consider this as, though, is the Enlarge, Reduce is almost like a secondary rage, right? Like, you have advantage on the strength checks, and you get additional damage that you add to your attacks. Like, this is... Okay, so you're getting an alternative to your rage that's basically like a rage. Duergar Dwarf has options to keep on kind of emulating rage in a way. Bard is the C. His don't really have anything helping him out. That's across the board. You might think of some strength Bard builds that could help out, like College of Swords or something, but yeah, in general, it's just not a very complementary pairing. Getting into the Blood Hunter, now I'm just going to be talking about Duergar here. Blood Hunter Dex, it's a B. However, Blood Hunter did just get its new version. It's now prioritizing intelligence and either dexterity or strength, not wisdom. It used to be wisdom. This used to be, I think it was either an A or an S. However, that change did alter how the Duergar was rated on here. Blood Hunter Strength is an S+. Get in with your Enlarge. You're going to have more hit points to play around with your Blood Right. Blood Maledict? Blood Right? I think Blood Maledict. Anyways, yeah. Blood Hunter Strength, S+. They're fantastic. Fantastic with Blood Hunter. Cleric is an A. This is for specifically strength builds. Forged Domain Cleric A, and I put that here because this is mostly going to be your strength build. Also, I had a few people asking, why did I single out Forged Domain here? It's for situations like where Fire Genocide has a redundancy. If you get fire resistance, I feel like that is a very significant resistance to get. That is one of the most common damage types in the game. The most common type of magical damage in the game. And for them to have a redundancy like that, I felt like this pairing is going to be harsh. Druid is B. The Dwarven Resilience, the Poison Resistance does transfer over to the wild-shaped form. However, there's just not really anything else helping out the pairing. Fighter Dex B, same reason I said for Blood Hunter. Fighter Strength S+, of course, great synergies. Enlarge is amazing. Cavalier S+. Eldritch Knight only A+ here because they're going to be prioritizing intelligence. It's not bad. You are getting help to melee attacks and to concentration checks that you're going to make on any spells that you cast. And you're getting more spells, and it synergizes pretty well with the spells that you're going to pick from the wizard class. So, yeah, I say A+. I, in general, just haven't really let Eldritch Knight on my table because the Magus exists, and I really love this class, so I personally don't play with it, but I keep it here on the table. Magus, Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma, they're all A. The Constitution is going to help. You go with the Strength build, it's going to be good. It just doesn't always help out your spell casting, so that's why it's only at an A. Monk is a C. Same thing, they're not getting any Dex or Wiz help. Mystic Scion, C, again, they're just not really getting anything to help out that class, aside from maybe you could argue the Constitution modifier increase. Paladin is definitely S+ across the board. I don't know why I had it rated that way. Especially here with Duragard Dwarf getting Paladin and getting access to Smite, getting access to Enlarge Reduce. This is crazy good. That's killer. Pugilist Dwarf may be my favorite character. One of the top 3 character concepts I want to play so hard. Pugilist, of course, there's some grapple builds in there. Enlarge gets you advantage on the check. It's so freaking good. Pugilist Dwarf, S+ across the board. Ranger Dex, C, same reasons we were talking about. However, the other ones like Fighter Dex and Blood Hunter Dex. So Fighter Dex is usually going to be a bow wielder. It's kind of my personal thought on like, I mean, yeah, you can go Rapier, Ranger build and use your Dex. I'm just kind of thinking about this in terms of like, most people that pick up Ranger are going to be using a bow. Sunlight sensitivity hurts that. You don't have anything helping out the pairing, so that's why I have it as a C. Yeah, I'll stick with that. The invisibility for Ranger is really good for what Ranger is trying to do. Same thing with Rogue, actually. I want to say it's enough to where the fact that they get invisibility, that's going to be a better way to get your sneak attack damage in. It's going to at least get it to you almost guaranteed once per fight. That invisibility is just such a good spell. I think that's enough to justify that getting a boost. For Rogue specifically, because you're getting the sneak attack synergy there. Scholar, C, it's just, there's nothing helping it out, and it's that way across the board. For a Scholar and all of the Arcane casters, the Mystic Scion, the Bard, in general for Dwarf, you're just not really getting anything other than the Constitution score increase that's going to help out that pairing. The fact that you do get some armor proficiencies, you do get the poison resistance, you do get some weapon proficiencies. You know, in the day that they really come out with the builds work, or like melee builds work for Sorcerer and Wizard, that might change. That's just not really currently in the game right now. Warlock, on the other hand, you could make an argument for Hexblade and going with a strength build on a Warlock. I may, in the future, add Hexblade to this as a distinction, like I did with Beastmaster and with Forge Domain. But as for right now, in general, for what Warlock is trying to build, Dwarf across the board is a C. Okay, so the Hill Dwarf. This is the one, remember, that gets the +1 to its hit points per level. So, Dwarf Artificer is a B. Very sadly, you know, honestly, I wish Dwarf Artificer was really good. Now, it's not, you're going to get some help with the Constitution. There's nothing really detrimental to the pairing. It's just that there's not really anything helping it out. In general, the synergy is what's not working there. Barbarian, S+, of course. More hit points. You need to be a big sack of hit points whenever you're Barbarian. You've got the +2 to your con. You've got essentially an effective +4 to the con, really. This is just doing everything you want it to do. The redundancies aren't a huge issue. That's just fantastic. Yeah, that's... Dwarf Barbarian is just so good. Bard, C. Blood Hunter Dex is an S. No, that actually needs to come down. I haven't changed these in a second. I was trying to think of, like, why I had that rated higher than the other dwarfs, and I remembered, oh yeah, Hill Dwarf, really, the damage that you're doing to yourself through your Blood Maledict is completely negated by the fact that you have these extra hit points, or effectively negated. You have a lot better way, you have a lot more of a resource that you can tap into while you're playing Blood Hunter if you play Hill Dwarf. The only reason why that's an S and not an S+ is because you don't have ASIs that are factoring into, like, strength, and literally the only other thing helping you out is the hit points. Cleric is an S. Of course, they get +2 to their Constitution, +1 to Wisdom, helps out your spell casting, helps out your hit points. It is great. Forge Domain is also an S. More hit points, you get the poison resistance. It's just, you're going to go out there with resistance to poison and fire damage. Like, good God, that's good. Druid, S. The hit points don't actually convert to your new form. I have been trying to figure out an answer for that. That seems like one of those particular cases that we need to see a sage advice on. Fighter Dex B, Fighter Strength B. Okay, Hill Dwarf Magus. So Intelligence base we got a B, Charisma base we got a B, Wisdom we've got an S. Go frontline. Just it's so yeah. As you can tell, I'm pretty in love with dwarf frontline characters. Like, I love tanks. I usually always play tanks in any like RPG I play. Monk is a B. You get the help in your wisdom. You get more of your constitution. If you're gonna go dwarf monk, this is usually the way that you're gonna go with it. Mystic Scion C, same reasons as above. Paladin is an S plus, as I said earlier. It helps out even more with the hill dwarf because the wisdom is one of your saving throws. So more synergy, yeah, awesome. Pugilist S plus, reasons I said earlier. Plus, Pugilist is really a class that loves to play with temporary hit points, and just getting in there, being able to do all the things that you want to do as a frontliner, with a bigger pool to mess with more temporary hit points to stack up on top of it. Like, God, it's so good. Ranger across the board, A plus. You're getting the help to your spellcasting. I would say most likely you're going to be playing these as a strength build as opposed to dexterity, but either build doesn't really hurt here. The Hill Dwarf does the dex build a lot better than the other dwarfs. Rogue, all across the board, is going to be a C. You're just not really getting anything for Dwarf Rogue that you're not getting anything for the Rogue from the Dwarf that you're really trying to get into with that class. Into Scholar and all the Arcane Casters, as I said before, with the Durgar, this, if for Hill Dwarf, is going to be a C across the board. Mountain Dwarf, Artificer, starts out with a B. Yeah, it's just a shame that wasn't better. I suppose you could go with some Artificer builds that call for strength, and then worrying about your intelligence, like investing with that with ability score improvements or something. Or if you just roll really well, like you get 16s and 3 or above that, then like, you know, it's going to make for a great character. But yeah, as far as point buy is concerned, that's just a B. Barbarian S plus, yeah. +2 to strength, +2 to con. I mean, it's everything you want. Bard C. Bloodhunter Dex is a B. Bloodhunter Strength S plus, one of the best performing ones. Why didn't I say that for Hill Dwarf? Anyways, Cleric S. Druid A. Fighter Dex B. I'm kind of going along here because I'm sure you all have figured out now why I rated them the same way. Fighter Strength, yeah, S plus. Cavalier S plus. I think the issue that I usually have with the martial classes is if you get it as a race feature, there's a bit of a redundancy here when it comes to fighters. However, like, everything else is just helping out with it so hard that, like, this is just so good. Magus A across the board. Monk is getting a C. Mystic and Scion is getting a C. Paladin S plus. Pugilist S plus. Dex build, Ranger is going to be a C. However, the Strength build is going to be an S plus for that. And same reasons as for the Hill Dwarf as to why those are all C's. So, yeah, Dwarf is just such a killer frontline race. What do you guys think about my ratings? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you're new to this channel, I do mostly D&D content. I'm kind of branching out into some reading content. Maybe I don't want to call myself a booktuber necessarily. And I am just kind of figuring out really what I want to do with the channel right now. I do a lot of homebrew content, and I do reviews as interviews with the creators. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, go check out my other videos. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the YouTube things. And yeah, Dwarf rocks. I hope to see you guys in the next one.